What's up everyone, Thrallsmell here once again. I am Necrotic and I have yet another collection update for you. Been hitting up distros again. Might have an impulse control problem, might not, I don't know. For you to decide, or for me, either way. So this one is actually going to kind of focus on two particular distros, and I did pick up some other stuff in here, but this is primarily going to be focused on Rotted Life Records and their distro, which they have a ton of cool stuff, and you will see it. And the other is Caligari Records and their awesome distro. A lot of this is focused on death metal and pretty much like really underground stuff. So if you're a giant death metal fan and looking for some cool underground stuff, there is a ton in this one. So I am just going to get right to it. Bastard Priests, their Vengeance of the Damned EP. This is the most recent offering from this band, I believe. It is a two-man Swedish death metal band. This came out on Chaos Records, and these guys are flat-out Swedish death metal. Like, you know, the old school stuff. Like, they kind of remind me a lot of Entombed and Dismember and those early albums. The production's even kind of extra gritty. It's a little bit muffled and dirty sounding, so it really kind of captures that. Hell, even the vocals kind of sound like LG a bit. Fast, thrashy, lots of D beat. Again, the guitar tone just absolutely carries this. This is only 4 tracks long, but it's an absolute banger. They have 2 other full lengths, and I'm going to have to check those out because this was absolutely badass. So if you're looking for some raw sounding Swedish death metal, oh my god, check this out. It's awesome. Blasphematory, Deaths of the Obscurity. This is their 2020 debut on Nuclear Winter Records. And it's a little confusing because there is an EP by the same name, just a slightly different cover, but it does contain, I believe, all the tracks that are on there, so yeah, just get the full length. This is a 2-man New Jersey-based death metal band, very cavernous, very, I don't know, like cerebral rot, mortiferum, like that fierce kind of death doom, but maybe not quite death doom. It still has elements of like incantation, so it still has like faster blast beats and the weird angular riffing. The lead work on here is absolutely awesome and very fitting. It's sludgy, it's murky. It almost has, again, like a demo quality, which I kind of liked about most of this batch. Very raw sounding. This sounds like what you're going to get live, and I instantly dug that. The vocals are particularly low and cavernous. Everything about this just, I don't know, feels filthy. Like the atmosphere just sort of permeates this album. And when you're not dwelling on the creepy atmosphere, the riffs are just absolutely pummeling you. Solid pick. I pretty much just saw this one, jammed a little bit, and was like, yeah, I can't find anything I don't like about this. So I snagged it. Very raw sounding, but dude, this is really killer stuff. Definitely check this out. Contagium, Impure Crushing Death Demo. This is their first demo, came out in 2019. This is a death metal act from New Hampshire, and I think I may have gotten this one as like a free throw-in since I bought so much from Rotted Life, which this is mostly Rotted Life here so far. I'm pretty sure I know where the Caligari stuff starts, but this is, again, their first demo. It is very raw, like it's very underproduced. The guitars are extra muddy. I kind of had issues hearing the snare at some points. The low growls really come through. The high screams are pretty much drowned out by everything else. But I like the style. And that was the thing. I was like, well, I mean, the mix is bad, but I would check out this band based on their style because it's just straight up old school death metal with a little bit of like kind of grindcore in there, like kind of like death grind, like Terrorizer. I do believe they actually have a full length, which I will look into in the future. But yeah, this might not be the place to start just because, I mean, it's super raw. Like, it sounded like it was recorded on like a tape deck in the room someplace, but it was still good. So again, you know, if you like really raw recordings, I would say definitely check this out. But if you want something more polished, I would assume the full length probably sounds a bit better. Either way, I definitely dug this, and if this was a free throw-in, thank you guys. It was pretty awesome. So yeah, definitely check this band out. Cryptic Shift, Visitations from Enceladus. This came out in 2020, and this is some really wild technical death metal, maybe touches of thrash. I might look familiar, or at least sound familiar, because Jammin' John actually covered this on a What's John Jammin' last year, and they just gave him a version with a different album cover. There's 2 album covers of this. This CD version has a different cover, but I remember him telling me about this, and I think he jammed me some of the shorter tracks, which the shorter tracks are still like 6, 5, 7 minutes. The thing he told me about, though, that really struck me was the opening track being over 25 minutes, broken up into 6 chapters. This is wild technical sci-fi inspired death metal or death thrash. I don't know, it kind of goes all over the place. There's a lot on here that reminds me of like Death and Gorguts, and they're in more technical eras, but it also reminds me of like technical thrash bands like Vector. It's so nuts in terms of like the song structure. It's very progressive. You can go from like melodic shredding to like dissonant atmosphere and sci-fi soundscapes all over this, and I might still just be talking about the first track. The other 3 tracks are really good. It's just that first track really stands out as this giant monolith of a song. I mean, it's insane, but it's really, really good. And these guys are fiercely talented. It's just insane, like what they kind of combine here in terms of making, I would say, a sound that's pretty kind of unique to them. There's definitely stuff you can pull from it that sounds like other bands, but oh man, this is absolutely nuts. But I dig it. And I'm super glad I picked this one up. And when I saw the name, I was like, that sounds so familiar. And then jamming, I was like, oh yeah, this is that band. Well, these guys are awesome. I strongly recommend checking this one out. This is gonna be an interesting journey for a first-time listener, but definitely sit through it and check it out because it's awesome. Decaying Purity, Mass Extinction of the Providential Ones. This came out last year on Severed Records. This is a Turkish brutal death metal act, and looking this up, it's kind of interesting to find out that there are a lot of bands in Turkey that are part of this kind of death metal group that essentially just trade off members and become different bands, because this contains members of Necrotic, Burial Invocation, and Hyperdontia, and a litany of other ones that I didn't know about yet, but seem to all share members with all the other bands I just listed. So there's this kind of crazy incestuous death metal thing going on in Turkey, and so far I really love the results. This is fierce, brutal death metal and very old school. Like, it kind of reminds me of like, you know, Baphomet and like Suffocation, Broken Hope, that sort of thing. The vocals are low but not very piggish, I guess. They don't have like the shrill pig growls, which I'm really not a fan of, but they do kind of wear in you after a while because there's very little in the way of a fluctuation, and the cadences kind of get the same. But the riffs, the drums, this album keeps a frantic pace. There's lots of those cool angular like Cannibal Corpse riffs like you hear, like, you know, definitely the Pat O'Brien era for sure. And the mix is really solid too. I think the vocals might be a little bit out in front, but overall, like, this is just a brutal, suffocating album. It does not let up. Like, this is just a barrage of insane, brutal death metal, and I might have to check out some more by these guys because this is really good. And I mean, I kind of expected that when I saw the bands that were involved with it. I was like, well, I think all of those bands pretty much, or at least the ones I'd heard of. Either way, definitely check this out. Solid release. I strongly recommend it if you're a giant old school brutal death metal nut. Check it out. Deconsecration. This is their 2020 demo. This is a Seattle-based death metal act, and it is fiercely old school. This leans more towards the Death Doom side, but it still has like these really cool punky moments. So think like Mortiferum meets Autopsy. It's pretty much straight up that. Like, that is pretty much the mix. Like, it's either moving at kind of like a punky speed or kind of shifts to like a mid-tempo to a slow Death Doom section. Great riffs on here. For a demo, pretty solid production. Everything seems pretty evenly mixed on here, and some solid melodies. I was really surprised the ones on Ghost. That song has just some great death metal harmonies. Again, not like pretty harmonies you'd hear in other music outside of metal. These are like metal harmonies that are still kind of gross and disturbing, but still oddly tuneful. That's sort of the thing I look for, and this was absolutely killer. Only 4 songs in here, pretty short, but I strongly recommend checking this out. This is reissued through Chaos Records, and you can find it on Rod Life. That's where I found it. So yeah, definitely check this one out. I'm looking forward to hearing a full length from them. Excarnated Entity, Stillborn in Ash. Now this is the Nuclear Winter Records re-release of this band's only demo, at least I believe, unless they put out something really recently. This is a Seattle-based death metal / death doom band, and I've been bringing up Cerebral Rot a little bit. Well, this one actually has one of Cerebral Rot's guitarists in it. This is some filthy, reverb-drenched, doomy, blackened death metal. My God, this is just absolutely nasty sounding. The production here is just, well, reverb-drenched. Even the drums, like the snare, has like a real echoey sound. All the guitars sounded like they were recorded in a subway tunnel. So huge cavernous feel, but the atmosphere in here is really, really good. The beautiful tremolo that comes in on the title track is absolutely haunting. And this is a really well-paced EP. It's only 4 tracks, or rather a demo actually, but they break it up really well between like slower doomy moments and like fast thrashy sections. And despite them, I believe, remixing this slightly, this still feels very, very raw, but it kind of has, again, that live quality, like you're in a large concert venue and they just kind of let that shit echo. It has that quality, and I really latched onto that because I miss live shows, that, and I like that sort of thing. Solid EP, or demo. Again, I don't know, I guess since it's re-release, maybe they're calling it an EP. Either way, this is really, really good. Love the atmosphere. It's creepy as hell, and I look forward to hearing more releases, because apparently Seattle's doing as much stuff as Turkey, at least. So yeah, definitely check this out. Good stuff. Entrapment, Imminent Violent Death. This is the last EP from this now defunct Danish death metal band. This came out on Dawnbreed Records, and I have a couple of their earlier releases, and I thought they were pretty good. I'm still missing one by them. They definitely lean closely to Swedish death metal. In fact, there's a lot of punk on here. Like, they went straight for the old school DB, like Discharge and Doom and all of that. But the mix on here is a little, I don't know, odd. I think the bass is almost completely kind of mixed out of there, and they kind of just let the guitars take over. And when it comes down to the like Swedish death metal band I think they're closest to, it feels a lot like Unleashed. Like, it kind of has their punkier style. I would even say like some of the stuff that's on like Warrior, which I'm not a huge fan of that album, but it has that straight up more punk sound. Like, you hear tons and tons of punk influence all over this. There's some really cool thrashy sections on here too, but again, the mix kind of hampers it a bit. Sucks this is where they left off, I guess. You know, I don't know why they broke up. I know they broke up before this was even released, but I did enjoy their earlier stuff. And again, I'm still missing one album, which I've been on distros again, looking around, so might get it. I don't know. I'll probably get it. Who am I kidding? But still recommend checking out this band. Check out their early releases for sure, and well, probably in the future you'll hear more about this band, because I'll probably get that other one and we'll talk about it. But either way, still check this one out, form your own opinions. I think it's pretty decent. Mix is a little rough, but still, you'll probably find some gems in there. Leprophiliac, Caskets of Flesh. This is this Spanish death metal band's first demo, and this is yet another 2-man death metal band. Now, I believe both members do vocals, so that's just a drummer and a bassist / guitarist, and they have a really cool trade-off. They both have very distinct voices. This is absolutely filthy sounding. It is steeped in murk. It reminds me of like definitely Autopsy, like Mental Funeral Autopsy, but the bass on here is so damn loud. It is just rattling my speakers when I was playing it. Like, I couldn't believe how loud it was, but it's kind of indistinguishable. You almost can't hear the actual notes, like the pick hitting the string, or if he's playing with his fingers. Either way, it is just this steady drone. But I don't know, I kind of liked that was employed in the punkier moments too, because I don't know, it just filled out the sound to an absolutely disgusting level. Shifts from like doom-laden melodies to those punk rhythms pretty well too. I like the transitions, and as a nice little bonus, they covered Circle of the Tyrants by Celtic Frost, and they murked it up and it sounded absolutely appropriate. Literally everything on here sounds appropriate for what they were going for. This is a murky, filthy album, and I think that's exactly what it should be, because this is absolutely nasty. Definitely check this out. It's pure filth and grime in all the right ways. So yeah, check it out. Apraxic, Edge of Human. This is the 2020 debut from this Seattle-based death grind act that has members of Witch Vomit and Sempiternal Dusk, which literally when I saw that, I was already hooked, because I loved both releases from those bands. They were sort of like year-end ones for me. And this starts the whole batch from Caligari Records, and what a good way to start. This is like some fiercely cool throwback to old school grindcore, like Bull Throwers' first album, Terrorizer, that sort of thing. And in terms of more recent releases, Caustic Wound, like it's right on that level. I would say this kind of favors more death metal, but there's still loads and loads of grind influence on here. The songs are a bit longer, so I guess that's more the death metal side, but the production screams 90s, late 80s, old school death metal. Was a bit of an issue with some of the picking on here. Like it was picking up like kind of a ting every time. I don't know what that was about. Maybe just was something I heard in there, but I don't know, it kind of bothered me after a while, but that was it. Like everything else in here I really enjoyed. Blast beats, punky D beats, big mid-tempo bolt thrower grooves. And I love the fact that this was so riffy. Like this is not just a blender of grind riffs and just blast beats and noise. Like this gets riffy and groovy, and there are loads of hooks in here. And dude, solid stuff. Looking forward to more releases from this band for sure, but I can understand if this might take some time for another release to come out because they seem to be busy in those other two bands, which are also awesome, and I also wish for future releases from. But, you know, if this is just a one-off, I'll take it. But if not, my God, more of this good stuff. Definitely check this out. Eyegouger Ass Attack. Ah, boy, this one's gonna be fun. This is the 2012 re-release of essentially their original 7-inch and their unreleased full-length album that would have come out in 1993. Now, might have to do a little bit of light censoring on this album cover because dude's taking a roto-rooter to the chick's butthole. I'm not entirely sure if she's dead or really enjoying it, or both. But yeah, this is an interesting death grind act, and I mean, it's as ridiculous as the name of this is. Now, this was re-released through Headsplit Records, and again, fierce death grind reminds me a lot of early Exhumed, especially gore metal. The production is very, you know, muddy and kind of muffled, but I mean, it's death grind. It kind of should be. And I got to bring up how many times ass comes up in here. I mean, this is a title track, of course. Chocolate Starfish, that's definitely a reference. Ass nostril, ass piss. We've all been there. Puckered anus, fill the crack. It's definitely a theme on here. But I mean, overall, I really did enjoy this. Like, it's ridiculous, and I knew that full well buying it. And you know, I even jammed it like, well, let's see if that's just a dumb gimmick or they're actually a good band. They were actually good. Now, I don't like the demo as much because the production quality takes quite a drop off, but the more mastered songs are great in here. And I mean, it's grind. They're short. I think the longest song on here is like maybe a minute 40. So they definitely take after the grind side and just keep things short and assy. This is a pretty solid release, though. I still strongly recommend checking it out, even though the cover is ridiculous. But don't worry, so is the music. But it's a lot of fun, and I dug it. And don't judge me. Or judge me, I don't care. Either way, definitely check this out. Granulated. This is their 2020 demo. And this is a one-man death metal act from Illinois. And the one guy on here, I actually brought up in the previous one. He is the guitarist and frontman of Molder, one Aaron Pankey. Sorry if I'm screwing up your name. This is his straight up death metal one-man project, and he literally plays everything on here. There's no like drum machines or anything. This is all him, and he does a great job. Lots of atmosphere. It actually opens up with like a John Carpenter like dark synthwave, and then the music is definitely different than Molder. Molder definitely has like a touch of thrash to it. There's a lot of obituary worship. This is closer to like just sludgy, mid-tempo, like kind of doomy death metal with like little bits of like punky D beats in there. Kind of similar to a lot of the stuff I brought up on here, but really good. And I gotta say, for atmosphere, like they pepper in some really messed up movie quotes, and I think there's a legit take of someone puking on here. Like it's a real nasty puke. You hear something hitting the floor that's kind of liquid but not. But I gotta say, it's effective. Like all the atmospheric little bits on here, and this is only 4 tracks, they all added to it. And musically, I like the fact that it, you know, again, doesn't sound like Molder. Even the vocals are very different. Like he's doing like that sort of John Tardy thing on Molder, where this is just a deep, cavernous howl, and it really works on here. Like all 4 songs in here were absolutely killer, and another cool band to look out for. I hope he actually puts out a full length or like a legit EP, because I would definitely get more of this. You don't have to puke your guts up on the next one, but if you do, I'll understand, because it was effective. So yeah, definitely check this out. Good stuff. Nuclear Winter, Abomination, Virginborn. This is the third demo that came out in 2003 from this Greek death metal band that would become Dead Congregation. And so I found out when I was listening to this, literally opening track on this is Dead Congregation. And I tell you what, if you love Dead Congregation, well, it's no surprise these guys sound like them because they are them, essentially. Because it's very similar. Loads and loads of like blast beats. There's lots of wild riff structure, very like Immolation, Morbid Angel, but you get tight, thrashy sections that scream Vader. I love the aggression on here. I love the songwriting. These guys were clearly onto something. They just needed a different name and, you know, maybe a slightly better album cover because, yeah, Dead Congregation's album covers are definitely better. But this was really cool. I had no idea who this was until I actually looked it up because I just jammed a song in there. I was like, wow, that's really good. And it's only a 3-song demo for cheap. Why not? Let's get it. And lo and behold, I found essentially another release from Dead Congregation. I can almost count as that. And all 3 tracks on here are absolutely amazing. And I don't know if they remix or remaster anything. This came out on Martyrdom Records, but it sounds a lot like Dead Congregation now. Like maybe just a little bit more raw, but the mix is solid and the songs are amazing. Like I said, if you love Dead Congregation, you should love this. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that. There's only 3 tracks in here, but they're all great and you should definitely check them out. Good stuff. Plague, Portraits of Mind. This came out in 2020 as a joint release apparently on Nuclear Winter Records and Redefining Darkness. And kind of glad I didn't hear this last year because it might have been on my year-end list. I'm going to lead off right away with I love this album. This is really awesome old school death metal with kind of nods to like both like bands that sound like Bloodbath and bands that love death and obituary and immolation. Lots of dynamics. These guys know how to write really killer hooks. The lead work on here is actually gorgeous. Like it's really pretty, which is odd because the album is just heavier than hell. That fierce like late 80s, early 90s death metal sound. The last track, Mind Control, literally has a tapping spot on there that sounds like the title track, Spiritual Healing, on Spiritual Healing. Amazing songwriting. Again, it's just loaded with great movements, killer hooks. The riffs are just great. The production's perfect for it, too. Like, it just sounds like this was unearthed in some old warehouse in Tampa, Florida. The vocals are particularly good on here. It's well enunciated, but it's a nice, deep, ugly growl. I loved every track on here. I was so firmly into this and I was literally excited for whatever the next moment was because generally the moment before that was absolutely awesome. Just an absolutely killer release. I can't believe I kind of overlooked this one. I may have actually seen it, you know, advertised. I just was like, I'll get something else. Well, I missed this one, but I got it now and oh my God, I love it. And I strongly recommend you guys jam this one because this is just 90s throwback death metal glory. It's amazing and you should check it out. Sallow Moth. It's their Death Spore EP. This is a one-man death metal project from Dallas, Texas. Really awesome, straight up death metal. This is really well layered death metal. That's something I definitely liked about this. He definitely liked to incorporate different layers, whether it be like tremolos, dissonant melodies, or even acoustic melodies on top of like these just big nasty riffs, which can go from like straight up death doom to just old school death metal with blast beats in the blink of an eye. Absolutely amazing songwriting on here. Really long song titles. Emerald Dust in the Crevices and Orifices of Man. The Morphomos? Yeah, no. That's one song title. A bit much. But this actually did come out on Caligari Records. This is where I ordered this one, of course. And I really dug this. I actually had some friends in some metal forums bring up this band, or rather this person. I didn't know it was a one-man band. And I kind of slept on this one too. I guess there's a full length out there that I need to check out, but this, I'm glad I kind of started off with a small offering because, you know, all of this, all 5 tracks were absolutely awesome on here. Very comparable to a band like Temple of Void. There's, again, you know, that sort of adventurous songwriting in there, and I think Temple of Void definitely embodies that, especially on that last album. Really solid stuff. Definitely check this out. Again, some of these are short, so I'm not talking as much about them, but just know that it's good and you should check it out. Warflurch, Lurking Doom, and also their 2019 demo, which is the bonus tracks on here. This is a Florida blackened death metal band, at least that's what they said. I think the black metal elements are mostly kind of in like some of the atmosphere, I guess, but overall this screams flat out death metal, like very incantation-y in terms of the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is really cool in here. They use a lot of horror soundscapes, and I mean with a name like Warflurch, which, well, if you're looking at the screen right now, I had a different version of that in my head, but it screams like something nasty and disgusting that lives in a swamp, you know, Florida. But it works in terms of like this nasty, foreboding sound. Everything is very drenched in reverb and doomy. The vocals are almost like kind of like howls in the distance sometimes. I just really like that overall. There's some fun, faster vocal cadences on here, but a lot of this is very mid-tempo and like very groovy. They don't really kind of go into blast beats very often, which again, didn't really strike me as black and death metal, like in terms of the overall style, but I mean, in terms of just death metal, this is absolutely fantastic. So another band to watch out for. I believe they just released a split here recently. I have not checked it out, so I can't really say much about it, but if it sounds anything like this, definitely check it out. Armagedda, Only True Believers. This is a 2019 re-release on Nordvis Records of this band's second album that came out in 2003. And now we finally get a break from the death metal, only for a little bit. This is a Swedish two-man black metal band, at least two men in the studio. They use a lot of session drummers, so I guess you can count that person. And if anyone's curious about what kind of black metal I really like, it's this. This is very riffy black metal. Still has all the blasts and a good chunk of the atmosphere, but I'm talking riffs. Like, these guys love like very riffy era Dark Throne and Bathory, like especially the early stuff, and definitely Craft. And I mean, like, this kind of reminded me a lot of The Universe, which is possibly my favorite Craft album. I'm really not going to commit to that just in case we do rank those. I know I weasel around on that one a lot, but it's very close. In fact, there's a song in here called FTW, which I assume is the world. You know, you start small, you can't fuck the entire universe at once, so they're just gonna fuck the world. Loads of melody on here. The song Poetry from a Poisoned Mind has some glorious, just epic melodies on here. And you have a bonus Satyricon cover on here, Night of the Triumphator, which they did an amazing job on there. I actually really like the production on here too. It's still raw, but it's still mixed well, so everything's separated and it doesn't sound particularly muddy, but it sounds aggressive. It's always fast and blaring for the most part. I loved the energy on this, and I need more from this band, because if any of the releases sound like this, I'm hooked. These guys are amazing, and you guys should definitely check them out. Decrepitaph, Forgotten Scriptures. This is a compilation, I believe their third compilation of just extra material. This is a two-man death metal act from San Diego, but originally from Dallas, and features Electrocutioner, who is the main guy behind Incoffinization, which is a death doom band, and apparently he's a member of a lot of other bands, and I didn't recognize many of them, but that one stood out. This is essentially like a collection of like 7-inch materials, splits, some demos, rehearsals, and even a live track on here. And this is straight up riffy, old school death metal. Very stripped down. I don't even think there was like a lead melody on here. Everything is just about the riffs, a nasty drum beat, and deep gurgled vocals. That's about it. As stripped down as it was, though, I still really enjoyed it. The opening track is actually a rehearsal, and it sounded absolutely amazing. Actually, it sounded close to production on most of the songs. The only song that really stood out in terms of like a big change in production was the live track, because it was live. Overall, this was a pretty solid comp. This is my first time ever like sitting back and listening to this band. I had heard of them, but I'd never actually checked out any releases, and maybe this was the way to start, because I got to hear them in a lot of different facets with a lot of different mixes on here, and they were all good. The only thing I could knock this on is maybe the vocal cadences get a little robotic, and you know, it kind of made some of the songs a little boring, but not boring enough for me to turn it off, so clearly it was good enough there. So yeah, if you're looking for some underground, grimy, straight up, very stripped down death metal, check this out. I'm definitely going to check out more by this band. And finally, quite possibly the biggest palate cleanse of this entire collection update, we have Devin Townsend, Acoustically Inclined, live and leads. I adore Devin Townsend. He is, I think, one of the best artists in music in general. The man is insanely talented, and just a good person. And I absolutely love that about him. But I also love his music. And this is just a very personal live acoustic show he did in a theater in Leeds. And I mean, it's literally him, a laptop, some guitars, a small stage, and just being his usual Debbie self. Amazing. Right away, the opening track, well, I mean, you get past a little intro where he's like awkwardly bantering with the audience, but Let It Roll, opening track on Synchronestra, or I can't ever say that word. Absolutely beautiful. When he starts singing, it's, oh my God, he's just great. Something about his music always connects with me on some sort of emotional level, and it does get me in the feels. I turn into a big pussy when I hear this sort of stuff because, I don't know, it's just so personal and so human, and it's him. It's Debbie. I've seen Debbie. I've met Debbie. Incredible human being, and I will pretty much always buy his stuff because he's Debbie. That's pretty much the only reason I think I need. So yeah, I mean, if you love Debbie, just get this, because it's one of the most like stripped down personal things I've heard him do. Granted, I've seen him do stuff on YouTube and all that stuff, but yeah, this was really cool. Just the feel of it is, I don't know, just really cool. Check it out. It's Debbie. All right, well, that knocks out another one of these. I literally have 2 other stacks from distros because might have a problem. I don't think so. But yeah, those will pretty much focus on just one distro a piece because I'm not combining these stacks because they're both pretty big. But I might pick up some other random stuff. I don't know. I've picked up a lot of stuff here lately, so I need to slow down because I'm also running out of shelf space, which we're going to work on here soon. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.